Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kickball Podcast. We have a very special guest with us, Miss Alexa Goldberg, now of Brooklyn Football Club, the USL, yes, the USLS side, just created this last year. Now one of the successful women's leagues, I've really in the United States, and will continue to keep growing. And now tapping into the college pool this past year, star goalkeeper the season before with the Florida Gators. Alexa, how are you doing?
I'm doing so great. Thank you so much for inviting me on. How are you doing?
No, just hanging around. A little bit of the winter break back up in New York, but thankful to be able to keep doing the interviews. That's all.
Yeah, I'm also up in New York right now, and it's very, very cold.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Geez. So I
Yeah.
go I go to school in Cornell.
Okay.
That's a whole other like pain to try to deal with, but it
Yeah.
makes this feel like a relief.
No, it's definitely an adjustment. I've lived in Florida my entire life, and so I'm finally living somewhere new, and somewhere new is somewhere very cold and a lot different than Florida. But, I'm happy to be here, like very
Right.
happy to be here. So it's definitely worth it.
Very cool. So, and I know this was an interesting talk that we had. I mean, we saw you sign initially into Brooklyn,
Yeah.
one of the teams that has been really at the top of the at the really one of the more powerful teams,
Mhm.
I think, in USL, in the USLS. Still like a handful for me to say because it's the S saying it twice, but uh,
Yeah. No, yeah.
and then, so signing with that team, of course, has been huge for your career, though, too, to be able to continue playing after college. Tell me about, not so deeply and nothing that you can't already share, but what were those conversations like with, maybe it was your agent, but between Brooklyn, like when did you realize that really being able to play for Brooklyn was something that was a possibility?
So I knew that I wanted to look in the Super League during my last season at UF. I
Mhm.
thought it would be a very good starting spot for me, and especially because I wanted to stay in the United States, I thought that the league just being formed would be a good place to sort of build my resume, make connections. So I told my agent that that's what I wanted to do. I trained with the Tampa Bay Sun this past summer, so I kind of got my first look at a professional environment, and I was all about it. I was like, "Yep, that's what I want to do." I told all my friends, and I was like, "Yeah, that's where I'm going." I'm like, but you know how life works in mysterious ways. I ended up in Brooklyn. Both my parents grew up here. They were both born here in Brooklyn. So I think it was kind of the universe saying that that's where I was supposed to be. And that's definitely something I believe in is that you're always supposed to, end up where you're supposed to go,
Mhm.
um, wherever that may be. So my agent, has a good connection with, the staff at Brooklyn. He introduced me to the head coach, and I had a few calls with her, and I was just blown away by her mindset, Jessica Silva. And, they also follow the sort of code that I like, where it's like, you're not only developing as a player, and obviously development is a big goal for Brooklyn FC, player development. You're not only developing as a player, but you're also developing off the field. And that's always been something that I've been passionate about, going all the way back to Florida. Um, my head coach at Florida, Samantha Bohan, kind of coined the motto for the program. It's called Student Person Player.
Mhm.
And I've always kind of lived by that because I think that when, you're not, when you're committed but not consumed by the program and by the sport, then that can foster a lot of like healthy growth for you. So yeah, it was just a match all around. The mindset, the team is really good. They play the style of play that I've been dying to get into. Um, so yeah, it was really just a good fit for me, a good starting spot. I'm glad that I'm here. And it's a great opportunity, and I'm really glad that I was able to make it work.
Very nice. A homecoming though too. I didn't even
Yeah.
realize that's huge though, and that I know that definitely means a lot for your family too.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
they're both ecstatic that I'm here. They're actually here visiting me right now.
So sick. And so there's one thing that you said that I thought was interesting, at least from I mean, you having been a goalkeeper your entire life and then now going into this system. Um, you talk a little bit about the style of play and how Brooklyn has a certain brand that you really wanted to be a part of.
Mhm.
And the average football fan, the average soccer fan listens to that and it's like, well, what does that really mean for a keeper? Are there certain formations set up? Are there certain ways that you're able really to get into the style of play? Again, without going so far into it, because I don't want to expose that kind of thing, or at least I don't want to be probing that out of you.
Yeah,
But
no.
like what are certain styles of play and maybe what are some things that you think would be conducive to your success?
I love to be a part of the build-up. That's what I was recruited to do in college. And unfortunately, the SEC is kind of a little bit more direct style of play, but that's how all of the teams are. So you kind of do have to adjust. But I was excited to get into a team that really does build out the back. And like, I don't even say that like, 1, 2 pass, like find a 10, but
Mhm.
it's very much swinging around the back, waiting for pockets to open up, using the goalkeeper as like a V pivot. So I'd love to be a part of the build, and that's definitely what I was looking for when I was considering different professional teams. Somewhere where I would be able to use the skills that I've like developed throughout the years. Yeah, I think especially these days, the modern goalkeeper is definitely a player that is going to be a part of the attack, and that's exactly what I was looking for. A team that really wants to produce that style of play and play a possession base that does start with the goalie and doesn't really take them for granted.
Yeah, and exactly like you're saying, being able to have that swinging, or yeah, to be able to swing on the back and ultimately find that position. I think it's something that is where modern football is going, whether you have purists that like it or not.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, and I'm glad that that's something that has been a strength of yours and that you've finally really been able to find a club that is going to be able to play to that more.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate to obviously be a part of a team that is kind of in the lead, if that makes sense. So they
Right.
already have sort of an identity built up for them. There's a clear style of play that they recruited me to fit into, and it's like it's nice to, feel like that you're a puzzle piece coming into a much larger picture.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that in the USL at least, or in um professional teams, as opposed to maybe a few conferences in college, it is more possession based. So that's definitely something I was excited for coming into the pro world.
And so you mentioned a little bit about the college game though too. I mean, I talk to men's players a lot about this
Yeah.
kind of work where there is a huge gap between the adjustment to college and really any professional league. But um, I mean, with the USL and women's college ball, it definitely seems like there's a closer relationship. Um, Not relationship, but it's definitely seems like that the college game will prepare you more for the USL or the NWSL. I've
Mhm.
even seen some players make the comparison. From your experience, at least in these first few preseason, stint that you've been able to have you been able to see a bit of that development, or what does that look like for you, if at all, so far?
I know everyone probably says this, but the pace is like the most different thing than college. So you really do have to be like quicker on your feet, quicker in decision making, always having your head on a swivel. Whereas maybe in college, the press didn't come as fast, or maybe, the press is more sophisticated in the USL, so you have to like make sure that you know what you're doing ahead of time all the time. Whereas in college, you can kind of usually wiggle your way out of things, even if the press is high.
Right.
But yeah, that's the biggest thing I've seen. The difference is basically just the pace, and that there's veteran players now that have been in the pro game for, years and years.
Mhm.
But I do think that the USL is a great like out of college environment, like first pro team. I think it's great for rookies because you get the environment of a professional team and you get the veterans, but it's also becoming more of like an environment where there's also other rookies that aren't you're not the only one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
No, it's definitely a great system, it seems like.
yeah. I'm just glad that there's a mix of experience on my team and in the rest of the USL because I think it really does help you learn because there's role models that everywhere. Like
Mhm.
a few of my teammates are like longtime NWSL veterans, and it's really cool to be sharing the pitch with them because they understand the game and how it changes, and they are so smart, and that's amazing to learn from. And that's the biggest thing that I've been trying to take advantage of in this preseason is that the girls around me are so smart, so fast, so strong, and not to say that that's not the same in college. It is just like a different mindset in professional soccer.
Right. Yeah, no, very interesting on that insight. And I mean one of the team bonding experiences that you guys had was the trip to Italy this past I mean I guess what these last like 10 days roughly, 14 week
Yeah,
days.
it was 2 weeks, 14 days.
Oh my
It was a
gosh.
while.
I mean, how fun was that? Tell me a little bit about that experience. And I mean, you know, why why go to another country to train? Of course there's a reason, but just why from the player's side of it, why was that why do you think that was so important? Not only for team bonding, but also being able to train in different environments.
Well, yeah, not only was it good for cohesion because we were with each other for 14 days straight, no breaks. And I think that that does no like whether you like it or not, it really does help you get to know the people around you. Um, and I think also us being in the context of a new country was good for cohesion because we all had to grow. We all had to kind of learn some Italian, kind of get over some language barriers, some cultural barriers, and we're all going through it together. So it's like it's a very good way to, you know, make sure we're all on the same page, all like learning something together. So I totally get the intent behind it, and I think it worked. I feel very close to all the girls now, and coming in as a rookie, that's something you are a little bit nervous about is, am I gonna like the girls? Are they gonna like me? And I'm lucky enough to come into an environment where all the girls are amazing, and in the women's game, that's important to have a good cohesion and a good chemistry between your teammates. Um, but yeah, I was lucky enough to come in to an environment where all the girls were very welcoming. So that played a part in me getting to know them in Italy because I was only there for 5 days before we went to Italy. Um, so yeah, and then we were able to train at Campobasso FC because we have a partnership with them through our owners. And um yeah, I mean, it was sort of more of a boot camp type of vibe than a vacation. So I
Right.
think we had 2 off days where we were able to go into, Rome and Napoli, which were amazing, but it was more focused on getting us in shape and getting us, oriented for the second half of the championship, and it was a great experience, and being in Campobasso where it's not really a touristy spot was super special because everyone's like, who are these American girls coming in? Like, why are there this random bunch of like American girls in like
Right.
Campobasso? It was so funny. Um, but yeah, it was a great experience. I definitely learned a lot and I was able to connect with my teammates. Um, and I told them all this that, as a rookie, like you do feel a little bit of pressure to get to know everyone in a really quick time, especially in a mini preseason that the USL has. And I think because we were able to all step out of our comfort zones and sort of all get pushed together in this one like little hotel all next to each other, I'm grateful for that because it allowed me to have an easier way to get to know everyone outside of the context of our regular training environment. So, yeah,
Cool.
I'm grateful for it.
So I appreciate you giving me the insight on these past few months. Real, I mean, I'm sure it's felt a lot longer than it has really been, but really these past like what month or 2 months. But I want to know the rest of your story though too. I want to let everyone have a chance
Yeah.
to know where you came from. So, I would love to hear from wherever your first soccer memory is up until really finishing college in Florida. I want to hear every part of it, and I'll have my little add-ins at the end once
Yeah.
once you get in at the end of your story. But I want to hear every detail. Um, that you can remember and that you want to tell. But I'm here to hear all your story.
Well, I love talking about my time at UF because it really was a wild ride. I don't know if you know about all the staff changes, but I'll go back all the way. I was born and raised in Florida, never lived outside of it. I was determined to get out of Florida, no matter what. So, yeah. Um, I started playing when I was 3, but soccer wasn't my primary sport until maybe high school. I did some other weird stuff. I danced, I did gymnastics, and I did circus arts. So a little bit of like it's called the static trapeze. That was like my favorite apparatus. So I did a bunch of stuff with that. I was actually pretty serious with that for a little bit. But I kind of realized that that's not really gonna take me to college and soccer will. So I switched mainly to soccer in high school and I wasn't even primarily hold on.
No, you're good. Yeah.
So I didn't become primarily a soccer player, I think, until high school or a few years before that. And I wasn't even primarily a goalkeeper until college. I did multiple positions all through high school and all through middle school. I actually played right attacking mid in high school, and I was up for Dairy Farmer Player of the Year or something like that. And then my teammate at UF, Delaney Tozel, actually won it over me. And we that was before we met. And then we ended up meeting in college and then becoming roommates for like 3 years. So that's a funny little story.
Oh my God.
Um
Okay.
and so throughout high school I was doing both and I was determined to get out of Florida for college. And so I was looking all in like the Northeast, nothing really out west, too much. But yeah, mainly in the Northeast and kind of like in the Carolinas. So I looked at a lot of schools and UF was actually the last school I looked at. And I came on campus like I think March of like my sophomore year of high school, and they had seen me as a goalie for a club, and that's what I was being recruited for. And I kind of knew at that point that that's what I was going to do in college because I it was my best spot. And so I came on campus once, and I think I just like knew that that's where I needed to end up. And I'd already been on a bunch of visits in other places too. So I had to kind of like let all these places know that I visited this one school and I was doing it and I was never going to anywhere else after that. So I committed to Florida within 2 weeks of seeing it for the first time. I don't know. I just knew
Oh,
and I was like, I changed my opinion about staying in Florida because the facilities are amazing. The coaching staff at the time was Becky Burley, who had been there for around 25 years. She
why?
was a
Yeah.
legend, a legend. She had that team win like an absurd amount of SEC titles. She has a national championship. She is a bunch of like Elite Eights. So she was a legend. And I was like, I don't know if I can pass this up. Like, she's awesome.
Great.
Like, yeah. And
And that
so,
was the state that you were like, no, I'm not going to. You're like,
yeah,
no,
I was like,
I'm getting out of
I was
Florida.
like, I was like, leave Florida or Becky Burley. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with the legendary program.
Yeah.
So yeah, I committed to Florida in my sophomore year, and I just dedicated the rest of high school working towards, being the best player I could be for when I got there. And I'm like incredibly grateful for Becky for giving me the chance because I was like 2 inches shorter in high school than I am now. Like I was short. And for the SEC, you kind of need like a bigger goalie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you need
So
height.
I dedicated like the rest of my high school career to working on everything I could do to make up for maybe being a little bit undersized. And I come in my freshman year. Um, I didn't play my freshman year, or maybe I played in like 2 games, which is totally fine. It was totally a learning curve. I'm actually grateful that I had that year to be able to develop and get accustomed to the college game. But then yeah, my sophomore year, um, at the very beginning of it, uh, Becky Burley and her staff retired. It was just, time for them
Yeah.
to go. you know, how that goes. But yeah, we had another staff for 1 year. A lot of the girls left because it was just sort of a change of pace, a change of style of play that we had a certain personnel for with under Becky, and it just like wasn't meeting the expectations of the staff that we had that year. So a lot of the girls left. We actually had like a spring with maybe 14 players. And I was excited because that my sophomore fall was the first time I was, in goal as the starter and playing full time. So I was in a good spot mentally. I was, making a lot of saves because, you know, we were getting pressed pretty hard in the SEC. All the rest of the teams had years and years and years to develop under a certain coach, and we had a brand new one. So, obviously people will leave, people will come in, it's a new team. So we were under a lot of duress that year. And I got to make a lot of saves, which I'm grateful for. But so that year was pretty fun for me until that staff also had to leave, got laid off. And so that summer going into the next fall, which would be my junior year, I actually entered the transfer portal just because I was like, I've already been through two staffs. I don't know what's gonna happen at Florida. I love it here though. I love the girls. I love the facilities, the program, the school. So I didn't want to leave, but I was like, for my career, for like my vision of wanting to go into the professional game, like I feel like that's the best step for me. So I
Yeah.
went to the portal. I took a few visits to like some, Power Fives. And then I got the call from Samantha Bohan, who is the head coach now at UF. Um, and she inspired me to stay. I felt very like indebted to UF at that point that they had taken a chance on me and that I still loved the girls, I still loved the school. And honestly, deep down, I was hoping it would work out where I would be able to stay. And when they hired Sam and she called me, I was like, oh, she's awesome. Thank God. And so I stayed at UF. My junior, senior, and fifth year, I played under Samantha Bohan. And, it's tough when you are going through an entire rebuild of a team. But I'm thankful for the experience because it helped me grow so much as a player and as a character. Because, when you come in from being an underdog team and like I would argue the best conference for women's soccer, like you come in with the chip on your shoulder, like they're ranking you 13th or 14th because you have a new coach. Like you're gonna want to show everybody that that's not who we are. That's not, the UF that we want to portray. So we came in as underdogs basically in every single game we played in. We had an entirely new team, basically, and a new staff. So yeah, we were under a lot of duress defensively. But you win, or what is it? You lose big, then you lose small, and then you win small, and then you win big.
Right.
So I stuck with it. I was loyal to the program. I'm very thankful that I was because I think it helped me learn a lot about myself and helped me develop as a player. Um, so yeah, we ended up beating like a top 20 team last year, and that was like a huge milestone for us. But finally getting back into the mix of being, one of the best teams in the nation, like how we used to be. And I know that UF still probably has a little ways to go before we're back in like championship level, but I'm like so excited that I was part of the group that was helping them get back there. So yeah, I'd say, I understand the transfer portal for a lot of people, but I'm glad that I didn't leave. Um, I think it really did help me out. It made me learn loyalty. It made me learn how to, work with what I got, work with my circumstances, no matter how they may be, how many players we have, what our record is, just try and work with what you got. And I think that at UF, it definitely paid off in the end.
I mean, I gotta ask, I mean, what else do you remember from the phone call um with Coach during that transfer portal?
Yeah.
I mean, with I'm sure it you wanting to stay at Florida certainly helped, but what were some of the things that were being told to you of like, look, this is where you belong. This is where you could be most successful. What did that look like?
She was like she was like, "Look, like, it's gonna be hard. Like, a lot of the girls left. It's gonna be a turnaround for maybe the next 2 years, but I see you, you know, I see that you I see the love that you have for this school and the program," and she wanted me to be able to express that, and I think that, you know, building from the ground up definitely does do something for your character, and she knew that, and she knew that I also am very focused academically, and she didn't want me to, like, have to transfer and, like, lose all my credits somewhere, so that was also a little factor that played into it. Um, but yeah, she was basically like, "Look, like, it's gonna be a grind, it's gonna be a struggle, but I have hope that we're gonna get UF back to championship level, like, I'm the coach that's gonna do it." Like, and I was like, "Alright, like, I wanna stay, I just need, a good reason to."
Yeah.
And, I just loved her mindset, her philosophy about, building the camaraderie, building up each other as people, and how that has an effect on the field too. So, I loved her mindset with that, and I loved that she was just as passionate about, like, rebuilding the program as I was. Um, and she also is smart, like, she knows that, um, obviously the SEC is changing. It's a lot more direct now. Like, you can't really play the same sort of, possession-based style that teams were playing in the past, maybe. She knows that you kinda have to go into more of, like, a hybrid, and she was willing to, work with the personnel that we had already instead of, like, maybe just being like, not my problem," like, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, she is very development oriented, which is also another thing I liked because I was like, "Why not make lemonade?" Like, we have great talent, there's no reason that we should be I'm so sorry.
No, no problem.
No, basically, the gist of the phone call was that she saw me being an impact player and, wanting to build a program from the ground up is definitely a challenge, but something that she saw me being like one of the pioneers or like one of the heads of the program. And, you know, when you're hearing that as a player that's kind of just starting like their college career, it's like, wow, like I have the opportunity to help such a historic program get back to, like, the prowess that they had,
Right.
and that, to me, seemed more appealing than, maybe starting brand new somewhere else, and, obviously, I'm not, banging anyone for doing that because I think in a lot of situations that the transfer portal is necessary. But I think in mine, I think I made a good decision of staying put and remaining loyal to, a program that took a chance on me and then maybe me giving back to that program and being able to help them try and get back to where they were. So that's basically she had so much hope. She was very smart about how she wanted to do it. She knew it was gonna be a grind, but she wanted me to be a part of it, and I also wanted an excuse to stay.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that's the gist of the phone call.
And so that's something that's very attractive that I'm learning is something that's a part of a lot of players' psyche. Whether it is in your situation where you were there for 2 years, but then wanting to bring this team back up, and you'll always feel a part of this team because of that. This will never feel like a pit stop for you, or if you had gone to another Power Five program and had been a blip of it, but maybe hadn't felt fully connected. I think this brings you connected to Florida on a whole different level. But even some guys that are going out of high school and wanting to go into playing the college game, a lot of them, what's on their minds is that they don't want to go to this huge national championship program. They want to build up another program for 4 years to try to make that a team that can compete for a championship. And so it's something that's interesting that I'm seeing that is definitely a switch, I think, between the view of a good, I won't say most, but it's a good portion of college players who have the ability to really change a program for the better. And I think that's exactly what happened with you.
Yeah, and I mean, it paid off. As a goalie, you love to kind of play for a team where maybe sometimes you guys are under a lot of stress and you're making a lot of saves. And I think I would have much rather do that than played for a top three team where it's like the goalie doesn't even touch the ball or they don't even
Yeah.
build out the back, you know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I'm very thankful that I played for a team where, we had our great moments, but we also had a lot of moments where we were defending a lot. And I think Florida takes pride in our stellar defense. And if you've ever watched a game, like you can tell that there's so much like pride and joy in us defending because it's like we're defending name, like we're defending a program that's been so like historically like a winning program for so long. So I was glad to be part of a more defensive oriented team. And I think it helped me because I garnered the experience that, helped me sign to a professional team basically maybe like 4 months out of my college season.
Right.
Yeah, it was a quick turnaround.
No, very cool. And so tell me about that turnaround though too. I mean, like and we've talked about it a lot before, but when did those conversations really even start? Were the conversations starting while you were in college, or this was something that you finished your degree and moved forward with?
Well, actually, I finished my undergraduate degree last May. So then I
Right.
started I started a master's degree this past fall at UF and I'm still in it because it's online. So
Very cool. Okay.
yeah, I'm still living the student athlete life a little bit. Which is honestly nice because I like the structure. But yeah, so the conversations about playing professional started during my season because I wanted to get a head start because I know that sometimes you can get caught in a little bit of a pickle if you wait too long. So luckily my and I was very anxious and I was like, am I starting too late? Am I starting too early? But my agent was like, chill
Right.
out, like you're good, you have time, like I'm gonna figure it out. Like all you need to do is get on these phone calls and that I put you on. And I was like, okay, perfect. And um I went up to Louisville for their pro day in December, and it was a great experience. I learned so much from it. And I'm honestly so glad that I went because it got me a little like teaser before I actually went into a professional preseason. Um, so yeah, I got the call about Brooklyn maybe a week before I actually signed. And then when I signed, I had maybe 2 days before I moved. So it was it was a whirlwind process, but, it was more of like a not a knee-jerk decision, but I was like, "You know what? Yeah, that's where I need to be." And I spoke to the head coach and I saw similar philosophies that I really liked, like, growing through college and, what I wanted to see more of in the pro game is, like, obviously the development, of the player and, like, I wanted to make sure that I knew that once I entered this club, I was gonna be getting better from the get-go, and I knew that that was going to be the case at Brooklyn. Um, and I also wanted to make sure that there was the piece of the camaraderie building and the character building, because I do think that that's so important. Um, as I said before, committed but not consumed, because I feel like that's how burnout happens if you're like too oriented in the fine details of soccer and not worried about growing as a person outside of it. Um, so I saw all those things and I saw them early on my first phone call with her. So I was like, okay, that's a spot that like that's where I gotta be. Um, and I did train with Tampa and I loved it there, but I thought that Brooklyn was gonna be, a better spot for me to begin my career at. So yeah, that's basically how it happened. And now I've been here for a month and I'm loving it.
So and so what does that goalkeeper's room really look like? I mean, are you able to learn from the other keepers that are with you, or um, tell me about some of those relationships?
Most definitely. Right now I'm with two national team goalies, so
Mhm.
it is just like every day I'm learning so much and I'm so grateful that I got put in this stellar goalkeeper room because they are both very different goalkeepers to each other,
Mhm.
but they both are like so skilled at like what their strengths are and what and they both are so like also self-aware to where, they can pick out things that they're like, "Oh, yeah, I need to do this and this," or like, "Oh yeah, like this was wrong," or like, and I've also been like that. I'm a very like mechanical oriented goalkeeper where I know like, oh, like my weight was a little shifted that way, or like oh, like my positioning, I need to tuck more into my near post. Like I've always been really fascinated about the mechanical side of goalkeeping because as a smaller goalkeeper, it really does make all the difference. So I'm just glad that I found a group of goalkeepers that are also just as like detail oriented as I am because it creates a lot of like really good discourse and it's healthy discourse too. Like I'm really glad that the environment's so healthy. Like the competition is there, but it's all like we're trying to make each other better. We all know like that we have the same goal in mind of just developing every day. So with that like mindset being shared, it's so easy to just like bounce things off of each other. And because they're both so skilled, it's like every day is like me being just like a kid in the candy shop just watching them. I'm like, wow, like I get to be here and just like watch them do like insane things and like I get to try it too and like it's just like a great environment.
No, very cool. And you don't get the spoils of that in every environment too. I mean,
Oh, you don't. Yeah.
no, wild. So here's something that's a little unrelated, but the number that's followed you
Oh yeah.
really through your college career and into the pro game now, thankfully you're able to take it. But number five, it's not, I normally think of it as a center back, but it's been something that you've held on to for a while. Is there a story behind it? Why you've kept with five? I mean, tell me about it.
Um, I feel like all right. So I've always sort of had this little chip on my shoulder as a goalie who's like a little bit undersized, but also like loves to like, build out the back, play with my feet, hit long balls. Like I've always done extra fitness outside, and I think that there's sometimes a stigma against goalkeepers that like oh, like they're terrible with their feet, they're not fit. And I'm like, that's just so not true. So I kind of did it like out of spite. I'm like, I'm not gonna have like a goalkeeper number like 0 or 1. And granted, they were both taken when
Yeah.
I was choosing. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna have a field player number because I just want to. And I feel like I kind of did it out of spite, but it kind of stuck with me and my coaches all gave me crap for it, but whatever. You know, if nobody else wanted 5, so I was like, I'm gonna take it. And I think it's a cool number and you know, I just didn't want to be a normal goalie.
That's fun. So there's no other reason, like if three was open, you would have taken three, but just five, it stars aligned where it was number five.
Well, okay, so my freshman year, the only number that was available was 15. And I was like, okay, honestly, cool number, Tim Tebow, like I'll take it.
That's such a
And
fun answer.
then
Tim Tebow.
So I had that my freshman year, and then my sophomore year comes around, and 0 and 1 are still taken.
Mhm.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna like continue this like weird thing that I have where I don't want to have a goalkeeper number because that's just how I've always been. Like in high school, I was 13. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I've just never had a goalkeeper number in my life. So I don't know, it's just like a weird
Oh
thing.
yeah.
So I was like, what if I just like knocked off the 1 and like I don't know, I feel like single digits are cooler anyway.
Hmm.
So that's what happened. It's really not like a sentimental story. It's more just like stupid.
Oh, fine. Yeah. No, but so how has that mindset of just always wanting to prove the stigma wrong, always wanting to be different, to be better in the ways that no, in the ways that maybe goalkeepers weren't seen as being good at. I mean, how often has that mindset and that idea had stuck around with you of wanting to be better in other ways that maybe people weren't expecting from you?
I think it helps a lot because when you get into the mindset that like you're a part of the attack and you're a part of the build as like not just a shot stopper but as like a field player, it helps you be a lot more comfortable on the ball, especially under like a high press. Whereas you just see yourself as like, a center back beating the press and finding space, you know what I mean? And I think having that mentality and the mindset that like I'm just gonna beat the press as I would if I was just a center back or if I was just a 6 trying to switch the ball. Because I think because goalies are under so much pressure as like the last line of defense, that sometimes that pressure does get too much, and that's where like mistakes will happen because we're human. Like obviously, um, people are gonna make mistakes, especially when there's so much pressure. I think that honestly makes it easier to make a mistake. So I think getting out of that mindset that, oh my God, I'm the last line of defense, I'm the goalie, like I, I think just being like, you know what, no, I'm a field player, I'm just gonna take this ball and I'm gonna switch. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think that's that's helped me definitely be calm on the ball and, become a part of the attack more.
Yeah, no, it's like being another center back. Like I was saying, associating the five with that's I mean that's how I'm piecing it together. But
Yeah.
uh, getting out of that mindset of you being the only one between the posts and just you're further back or well, you're further behind the line center back almost, and that's something that will prove to be valuable for the rest of your playing career, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And like I don't know what to say.
No, no problem. Um, yeah, what was I gonna say? Now I gotta come up with a question. I'm kidding. Um, no, yeah. Has there ever been any stories about other te have you ever had anyone come up to you and be like, because you had a five on in the, I mean, I guess people study the goalkeepers and maybe not necessarily the numbers, but they'll know you as a player. When they see five in the goalpost, does that ever maybe confuse them at some point? Like, who the hell is? Because you're not
I'm sure.
necessarily putting,
Yeah. I'm
yeah.
sure at some point it has. Nobody's ever come up to me and like
Oh,
hated on me to my face for it, but no, my one of my assistant coaches at UF, Adam Godwin, he was a center back and he was 5 and he was like on one of his Instagram stories like, "I don't understand why my goalkeeper wears 5." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like the best players will wear 5 now." And then he was like, "Oh, you're," because I he wore 5, that's why I'm saying that. I
yeah,
gassed him up a little bit.
it's fun.
And he was like, "You know what? You're right. Like I'm glad it's you." I'm like, "Okay." Um, but no, no one of these ever like came up to me and been like, "Why are you 5?" And I'm like, "Well,
Right.
I don't know. In Europe, like a popular goalkeeper number is 13. So I don't know, like
Hmm.
sometimes sometimes it just happens like that, especially if 0 and 1 are taken.
Because I've seen some stories, at least in other sports. I'll say I'll use football for an example, but I know some quarterbacks that'll look at whatever, maybe a cornerback will come off the field and they'll see someone coming on with like 46 or 47, and he'll look to target them because of that number, because he knows, oh, he's not getting a number in the 20s or what. And this was when you had certain ranges that had to be certain positions. But if you had someone who was in the 40s and he was lining press with the best receiver, he would go after that matchup because he knew that there wasn't the experience. That's why I bring that up.
Yeah. No, yeah. I wish I could tell you some like really cool story or sentimental story about why I'm 5, but it was honestly just like, oh, 0 and 1 are taken and, you know, I don't want to be just like a regular goalie number. So there it is. It was 5 and it just kind of stuck.
But you know what? I think it says more to your character, to your person, that is the reason because you're five, instead of it being maybe you have five siblings or five people in your family. Like that's I think your reason is more indicative of the kind of player and how driven that you are though too. It's just I don't care. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna train in the ways that you don't expect me to, and I'm gonna be better in the ways that maybe you don't think
Yeah.
could be conducive to the system, but that's what's gotten you your first professional contract.
Well, yeah, I think the story of why I'm 5 does kind of align with my mindset and how it's been because I've always sort of come into different scenarios with a little like chip on my shoulder, I'm a little bit undersized. I'm playing for a program that, hasn't been to the SEC tournament in like a few years. Like I'm like playing for a team that has 14 players right now, like, but I just don't care. Like if I'm getting better and if I'm helping the people around me get better, then, that's a win to me. Um, and, people are going to see it. Like, if you play in the SEC, obviously people are going to watch those games.
Mhm.
And if you're able to, make lemons out of lemonade and make the best of the circumstances that you're given, then, you'll be rewarded with what you have worked so hard for. And I think that's why I was able to garner enough film, enough like say I had almost like 500 saves to pick through from my career. So I'm glad that I played for, the team that I played for because it was definitely worth it in the end. I got so much better. I was able to, really show what I knew I could do. Um, and I was given a stage to do it on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my story does align with, the 5 thing because I've always sort of, been like, "You know what? I'm just gonna do what I want no matter what's, get put in front of me." You know what I mean? I'm just gonna make the most of it and, whatever people think they can think.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I've appreciated the story. I've appreciated your really the entire time that you've been able to just give me this kind of conversation and just to learn more about you moving forward. You've got a supporter in me and Kickball for the
Mhm.
rest of the way, but I want to also leave it up to you. Is there any one moment or any one thing that you want to say at the end of this interview? I'll leave the floor to you, Alexa, and again, I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I truly think the main points of, like, my journey through college soccer and becoming, like, a pro is that, like, you really don't, or maybe the right way to say this is that, you know, there's obviously certain things that you can do with the circumstances in front of you, but I truly believe that if you're, driven to get to a certain goal, like you'll do honestly whatever it takes, um, no matter like what happens in your career. Like maybe, coaching staffs get fired, people leave teams, maybe it is like really important for somebody to leave a program and go somewhere else. And that's still making the right choice with what circumstances are laid out in front of you. Um, and I just think like if you work hard enough and if you have the goal in mind and you're able to be the best player that you can be for not only yourself and like the people around you at wherever program or whatever situation you are, then your work will be rewarded. And I think my story is a testament to that.
Well said. Again, enjoy your lunch with your family firstly, but also again, I mean, I said it before, but you have a supporter in me and Kickball the rest of the way and we'll be making sure to watch your career.
Thank you so much for having me.